Hi everyone, I hope you all are doing good. And first of all, apologies, I have not been able to post for a while. There were a few things going on here and there, and it was just very difficult for me to create something for YouTube and put something for you guys. But I will try to be regular now, and hopefully you will see a new series of videos coming in from me frequently. And what I'm also going to do is I will also be trying to cover some of the other areas which apparently people have actually been putting their comments on. Some of you have also reached out to me on LinkedIn and you have suggested that if we could make some more videos around these areas. So keeping that in mind, we would be starting this new series where we would be talking a little bit more about some of the areas which are not necessarily completely domain based, but areas that also require you to understand the data aspects, right? So I think the payment series has received a very good feedback, and thanks to all of you for your overwhelming response. I think every comment that you put out there, guys, it just motivates me like anything, and that was one of the reasons why I thought that no matter what, this year I'm going to make out some time for you all and create some videos. So thank you once again for all of your support. It truly means a lot to me. Okay, I would also recommend you to please let your colleagues, your friends, and everybody who can benefit from these videos to know about it. And the intent is not just to share with what I have experienced so far or what I know, but when you put out those comments, right, and you give those suggestions, it also helps me to improve, right? So it's a two-way process, the way I look at it. Okay, so it helps me as well to improve in certain aspects, and obviously if there's something that can benefit you all from these videos, then I'll be really happy. Okay, so we'll probably try to cover this as a different series, this being probably the first or the second one in that series. I had already made a video around various careers in data before, so if you have not seen that before, you can go to my channel and check out that video. The other thing that I have also tried to make sure this time is that some of you had suggestions to improve on the voice quality of the videos. So this video has actually been shot through a professional mic, and hopefully the quality would be better for you. I'm also trying to use the webcam here just to make it more natural, and you can actually see who is talking. So sometimes it makes a difference. So yeah, I mean, just let me know if you think that there is something that can be improved. Usually I try to draw things here and there and try to explain that. So whenever there is a requirement of any such topic where I should probably sketch it out and discuss with you, then I will probably use that approach. Okay, so today this is all going to be driven through this small presentation, and we will be talking about a very interesting area, something that really many of you have actually talked about in the past and have approached me as well, how we can probably transition. So first off, business analyst and data analysts are two different profiles, so to speak, but sometimes they could be disguised as one or the other. You have to go through the job description carefully to understand that what is it that is expected from you in that particular profile. Business analyst traditionally, as we all know, it's a more of a domain focused profile, right? It talks about the functional aspects. It talks about how you can bridge the gap maybe between the technical teams and the business and things like that. Whereas data analyst, so to speak, is something that has actually gained a lot of traction over the last couple of years, or maybe a little bit more than that. So without much ado, let's go ahead and start talking a bit more about these things. So we can cover some of these things here: business analysis, certifications, type of work, what's the difference. We'll probably look at a use case and see how the same use case differs when you're donning a hat of a business analyst versus being a data analyst, and how can you transition, and some of the tips that I feel might be helpful for you in case if you're going for a job hunt. So what is business analysis? I'm not going to talk hours and hours on what business analysis is. Many of you who are watching this video are probably a business analyst themselves, or are working into as a QA analyst, or as a production support analyst, or maybe as a developer. It just talks about traditionally what a business analyst is, right? People who are sitting in investment banks, people who are sitting in cards and payment organizations, hedge funds. They are traditionally functional business analysts, right? They understand the business side of the things. Then there are certain people who are techno-functional business analysts, where they are the people whom typically you would find into an IT services company, and maybe in a fintech or even banks for that matter. And they are the people who actually are not completely working as a developer, right, or as an architect. But then there are the people who actually delve with certain aspects of the technology, depending upon the need of their profile, right? And certain things that they pick up on the job. Many of the people who are working in a techno functional role, right? They wouldn't actually have started probably as somebody who wants to work as a techno functional role. What happens is that when you're working in a functional profile or a technical profile, and the way the things move in your projects or in your careers, you move from one thing to the other, and that's how you start enriching your experience. And that's the beauty of the whole thing, right? That's what makes you a well-rounded professional. In a tech environment, it acts as a bridge between the IT teams and the business teams. So business analysts, they act as a bridge. Traditionally, we have seen a lot of MBAs doing this job, but that's not the case anymore, right? I think I know ample number of people who are not MBAs. For that matter, people who don't even have an engineering background, right? And they have picked up the skill. It's just about how good you are in terms of articulating your thoughts, in terms of doing the analysis on the data. Yeah, so all those sorts of things. In an agile scrum perspective, PO or the product manager can be one. Yeah, so that's also something that we have seen. We will not go into the aspects of whether this is right or wrong, or whether there is any confusion, or whether we're not going to talk about the segregation of the roles between the PO and the BA here. But all I'm saying is I have seen certain scenarios where the PO and the product manager also do a full-fledged role of a business analyst. Then what are the kind of profiles? If you are not an MBA, then what are the kind of different things that or what are the kind of different skill sets that people have when they move into a BA role? So somebody who's an experienced QA, somebody who's a functional QA, right? He enjoys more dealing with the functionality and the business side of things rather than writing test cases. And therefore, he wants to transition, or he would have transitioned into a business analyst. Somebody who's into a production support role, right? He wants to understand the full-fledged business, and that is something that excites him. Or maybe a developer or project managers who, with time, feel that this is something that really excites them. Okay, so let's take out a problem statement here, right? And just to understand how somebody who is a business analyst would approach this versus how somebody would be a data analyst, which will come into the further slides. Again, this is all depending upon what I think. I'm not saying that this is right or wrong, but these are just my thoughts that I'm sharing with you. Yeah, so just keep that in mind. Let's look at this problem statement. It says we want to improve the revenue and sales of a particular credit card. Okay, so that's the high-level problem statement. So what would BA do? He would probably do a functional analysis. He would probably see what kind of card it is, who are the typical consumers of that card, right? What kind of customer base that the card has. Okay, what's the kind of age profile? Are the people who are into the 25 to 35 years category who are using this card more versus 35 to 45 years and things like that? Is there a particular geography where the card is being used more? And what are the kind of spending trends that people have when they use this card? They would do that gap analysis to figure out why is the sale and the revenue of this particular card less as compared to maybe some of the other competitions or maybe some of the other cards, right, that the company is offering. So that's sort of that functional gap analysis that they would try to do. That gap analysis would also be if you talk about that holistic gap analysis, they would just not just say that functionality wise there's a difference, or maybe the offering wise, right? Maybe there is something else to it. Maybe the whole user experience is right in terms of getting that card, using that card, swiping the card, and then getting the statement and the rewards. So it's like there are a lot of things that you can talk about over there. They would probably be looking at some reports and dashboards to see how the analysis and the trend has been over the last few years. Standard business intelligence is what we call that as, where you see just the trend and see, okay, yeah, this is how the probably the sale has been for the last 2 or 3 years, and then depending upon that, you probably try to do some analysis. You would probably be meeting some stakeholders, some SMEs, to give more insights about that particular card. Maybe somebody who is sitting into the authorizations team, or maybe somebody who's sitting into the card issuing team, and probably you will probably get some inputs from them. You will make then recommendations to these SMEs on to the key stakeholders and say that probably this is something that you should probably try to do in order to increase the sales. Okay, so this is a typical problem statement that I have put forward, and as a business analyst, you have certain steps that you'll probably be doing to take care of. Okay, when you're doing all of these activities, right, you'll probably be having some tools that you use, and this is what we have seen so far, right? some of these things we are already aware of. We use it on a daily basis. Email, you can't really live without it. It doesn't matter what profile you work on, but BAs typically use a lot of communication mechanism. Now we are living in the era where you use Microsoft Teams and Skype, and but yeah, the essence over here is that you have to communicate frequently, right? So that's one of the things that you do. You also create some documents, some mapping documents, data dictionaries, etc. So you use Excel intensively in these activities. And that's the beauty of Excel, right? It's so versatile. It doesn't matter whether you work as a developer, you work as a BA or a DA. Excel is so versatile that it's just something that you can simply not ignore. Microsoft Visio, a very popular tool to document the process flow, right? And if you want to do some flow charting and say, okay, this is how the flow of the information happens from system A to system B, or from one interface to the other, Microsoft Visio is something that you can go for. You can also capture your documents in Microsoft Word. And you can probably capture the as-is and to-be situation. So how the current system is versus how the future system should look like, in case if you are making some recommendations. Certain certifications that I want to call out here. There are certain certifications. For instance, there is a certification called a CBAP, which is offered by IIBA. It's an institution for business analysts. And also PMI has started offering some courses on and some certifications on business analysts. So there's something called as PBA. So please Google and you can probably read more about it. And if you're interested, you can do this one of these certifications. Any certification that we do these days adds value. So why not? Now, who's a data analyst, right? We talked quite a bit about the role of the business analyst here, but let's probably look at who is a data analyst and how is this a differentiation from the role of a business analyst. So as the name says, right, data analyst is somebody who focuses on the data more, and therefore certain technical skills like, for example, SQL or SQL, it becomes very important, right? I wouldn't say that it's just for the data analyst. I have seen like some of the business analyst profiles as well, where expertise or at least writing basic SQL is a must. Yeah, and there are a lot of resources online, a lot of tutorials online where you can actually do some practice. You can install a free database. For example, maybe you can install something like a MySQL, and you have the community version over there, and you can start doing some practice on your own. If you really don't want to do that, you can even go online, and there are certain websites where you can and certain portals where you can actually practice. And write the SQL statements and do a submit over there, and it will immediately tell you if there is a syntactical problem or if the result is not right. And there are a lot of quizzes as well, right? Online quizzes. So there are ample resources to pick up SQL. Now, data analyst typically focuses more on the data. SQL is one of the ways, but as we talk about data and the volume of data, right? So it's not just SQL, right? You could probably query the data using different other languages. You can probably use Python. You can probably use R if you are talking more in terms of data analysis and data analytics and things like that. Some of these languages have got their own data specific libraries that you can use extensively, right? And some of these, for example, Python comes with their own data visualization library now. So you don't really need to have a different data visualization tool like a Tableau or a Click or any other tool or a Power BI. But Python will itself give you that option, yeah. And a lot of mathematical functions, statistical functions are all inbuilt. So what I mean to say is that you don't really need to do everything from scratch. You have to just import the libraries, and you have to go through the documentation of those libraries, and you can just go to the so for example, if you're dealing with pandas, right, in Python, it's a very popular library when you're dealing with data analysis. So you can go to the pandas website and you can go through the documentation, spend some time over it, pick up come to your machine or your laptop, install pandas, Python, and there are ample number of videos and websites that can tell you how to do that. And then you can practice that on your own, yeah. And you can probably see how useful it is, and that's how I think you would probably pick it up. You can work in sync with business analysts, product managers, etc. And I have also seen that in certain situations, a data analyst is also expected to work as a business analyst. And there's nothing wrong in that. In fact, I feel that it's even more valuable for a data analyst to work as a business analyst, because then he understands the domain part of it very well. And when you understand the domain part of it and you translate that into your analysis, right? That's something that is unbeatable. I mean, you would probably excel like anything in that situation. People with a problem-solving mindset, good at communication, domain, and a little bit of programming skills. So I'm not saying that you should be a programming expert or you should be, sort of an architect, doing heavy, intensive coding. But at least start with SQL, take one step at a time, and then start evolving from there. Good thing is that today the tools are so sophisticated and so advanced that you don't really need to write a single line of code from scratch. There are drag and drop tools, but I would strongly recommend that go through something like a SQL, practice the basics, at least know how you write a SQL statement, how you join the tables, how do you use a primary key, foreign key, and different kind of joins, how do you query the data. And then once you start understanding these aspects, right, then understand the kind of data that you're dealing with functionally, see how these two things collaborate, and then from there you start building up, one step at a time. Degree of proportion of the skills mentioned above may vary. Yeah, so certain times data analyst might be required to heavily work as on SQL. So maybe SQL takes the front seat over there. Certain times he may be requiring to be working more on spreadsheets or as a business analyst. So it really depends, right? It's a mix of different skills, and one of the skills might be required in a higher proportion as compared to the other. It's a loosely used word, right? And the roles and responsibilities in job description may vary, something that I've already talked about. So make sure that when you're applying for a job of a data analyst, you understand the profile well. You should ask questions to the recruiter or to the hiring manager, to understand more about the job description, because the job description is sometimes very generic, and it would just say that somebody who's good in analysis, somebody who's good at looking at the data and making recommendations, but that statement means a lot. Yeah, so you have to probably ask those questions at the right time. Okay, moving to a data analyst role. So this is something that I feel I recommend to people who talk about this transitioning. If it works for you, fine. If it's not, then do let me know in the comments, what is the kind of approach that you have followed or would follow. I strongly believe that don't go for a big bang approach. What I mean by that is, I've seen people like going for some certifications or some courses from some renowned institute, right? So maybe some university, some Ivy League university has put on some online course, and you just want to do that because they promise to give you a certificate which you can proudly put on your LinkedIn profile. All that is good. I'm not saying that don't do that. All that is good. All that is more than welcome. But I think if you really want to take a practical look at it, you have to take one step at a time, right? Don't go for a big bang approach where you think that a 2-year certificate might be helpful, because the kind of content that's there in those courses is too much for you and you might be overwhelmed. And therefore, it's very important that you take one step at a time. Go slow. Start with SQL. Start building your SQL skills. See how good you are in writing queries. And there's no race right over here. Everybody is in his own career path. So if you're taking 2 months versus somebody who's taking 15 days, that's absolutely fine. As long as you understand the concepts, that's what it matters. So take baby steps, work on the core concepts, spend time doing those exercises, make sure that you understand SQL well, for example, and then once you know that you have a good command on SQL, maybe you can start learning Python. And when you start learning Python, don't just go and jump and start learning, about pandas from day one, or about NumPy or Matplotlib from day one. Rather, I would say that focus on the key core concepts of Python. So understand the syntax of the language. Python is very easy to understand, yeah, and syntactically it's very, very, very simple and straightforward. One of the most simple and straightforward languages that I have seen. So yeah, take those steps, and there is no race over here. Just take your own time. Just make sure that you understand the concepts well, and then slowly add those certificates, do a small course from Coursera or Udemy, add that to your kitty. And then once you feel that you have spent about 8 to 10 months, or rather 1 year, and you kind of understand what this whole world is all about, right? And you kind of understand how Python is being used or SQL is being used in data analysis, then you are in a better position to make that judgment that what course is right for you. Maybe you want to move into something like a data science role down the line, yeah, which is more about talking and dealing with algorithms on data, right? And it's completely a different line altogether. But somewhere there is a sort of an overlapping with these kind of things that we're talking about, like business analysis, data analysis. There are overlapping aspects to that role as well with data scientist. But you wouldn't realize that overlapping until you take those steps and until you understand what this world is all about. And then from there, you would be in a better position to make a judgment and say, okay, yeah, I want to go for this 2 year course now because this is where I am right now in my path to becoming a data analyst, or I have already been doing this role. But if I do this 2 year course now, and if I spend all of my weekends understanding and doing this course, 6 to 8 hours or 12 hours every week, then this is the value that I get. LinkedIn is the most popular, so you would have mostly everybody on LinkedIn these days. So build up your network with people who are in the same roles and profiles. See if you can have a discussion with them, and find out more about, how they do, what kind of job profile they have. You can also start with the data visualization tool. I didn't talk about that much, but if you come from a non-coding background, right, you can probably do some visualization on Excel or Tableau. All of these tools have Excel anyways is universally used, right? And but Tableau and some of the other visualization tools, they may give you some sort of a free version or a free edition where you can go and do some practice yourself. Yeah. And again, there are multiple number of learning opportunities for these tools. But I think it's very important, if you're a data analyst, that at least you understand how the data visualization is drawn. You should be able to read a data visualization as well, right? So you should be able to read and decipher what a candlestick chart is trying to tell you, or what a spider chart is trying to tell you. You should be also able to understand the trends and how the trend lines are being plotted. It's not just about building these visualizations, it's also about understanding these visualizations, and I think that's where I'm trying to put more focus on. With time, when you start dealing with these tools, building the visualizations becomes very easy. Yeah, and there are beautiful charts, fancy charts that you can build, but sometimes what you need is a simple visualization that can do the job for you, right? So keep things simple. Python, R, I've already talked about some of these things, heavily intensively used these days, and there are a lot of online courses, free tutorials. If you need some references or some good ones that I have used, I'm not too sure on R, because I haven't gone through that path and on the R side, but at least on the Python I can probably suggest you some good tutorials. So leave a comment and I'm more than happy to answer the and let you know. Kaggle, HackerRank, Hackathon, online quizzes. So there are multiple forums where, just to make sure and understand and also gauge how good you are, right? There are multiple different online competitions where you can take part in and assess how good you are in grasping those skills. But again, this is something that would come later on, right? So the first step is that you go see a video on YouTube or go through some online portal, understand the concepts and go for it. Good thing is that everything here which we have talked about is mostly free, yeah, except for some of the certifications and degrees. Obviously they are the paid ones, but other than that, if your intent is only to gain the knowledge, then everything is free. You don't need to pay a single penny from your pocket to do these. Okay, so now that we understand and we talked about some of the things that a data analyst would do, let's look at the same problem statement once again. Okay, where we said that we wanted to improve the revenue and sales of a particular credit card, and see how a data analyst would have approached that particular problem statement, right? So functional analysis, gap analysis still would be there, but maybe if you are not doing the role of a business analyst and you already have one in your team, then you may be collaborating with them, right? Maybe a business analyst or a product manager. I've actually struck down the line that says standard business intelligence over here, because now we are not doing standard business intelligence, but rather we are analyzing the data. So there would be so it depends on the quality of the data, right? if it's production data, there are chances that you may need some sort of cleaning up. If there are already not some of the aspects spent on these exercises, so you may need to do some data cleaning, data wrangling, algorithms, and visualization. These are just certain activities that you do to make sure that data is now in a state where you can actually query and analyze. Yeah, so you have to do some data standardization and make sure that data is now good enough to do that analysis. Okay, I plan to make a separate video on this particular statement, right, that is in bold. So if you guys think that that's going to be helpful, then do let me know in the comments, and I'll probably try to make one. Volume-based analysis, unleash the power of analytics, predictive, prescriptive. So yeah, I mean, this is a different world altogether, right? And at least as a data analyst, you may be able to, if not doing completely an analytics role, maybe you may be talking to somebody who is doing that predictive algorithms or prescriptive analytics, and maybe you need to give him those inputs, right? So that kind of thing is what I'm talking about. You meet the stakeholders, SME, and then you make the recommendations as what a BA would do. So those things are still going to be the same, but the only difference that you really see over here is that it talks about data now. Yeah, so more than just the functional aspects of the things, you would bring in that functional aspects, but on the basis of data. That's the major difference that I'm talking about. Some of the tips for job hunting. This is again based on my experience, but if you guys know of some other good tips, then do put that out in the comments so that it helps all of us. Change in the mindset, believe in yourself is the most important thing. Many a times what happens is that people who are typically from a completely functional side, they find it very difficult to change the mindset. And for them, it's like, they are moving their profile altogether, or they are doing something that they have no experience working on a completely different world. You have to stop thinking like that. I mean, you probably have to think like, if you are moving from a business analyst, functional business analyst role to a data analyst, it is an added dimension to your profile. It is something that is a next step, as a natural, organic next step to do the analysis. Because the kind of, like I said, if today we are living in a world where we're just talking about big data and data in huge volume, so it is very difficult to just do that analysis on a spreadsheet, for that matter. Yeah. So what I'm trying to say is that this mindset change should be organic. You don't need to think that you're taking a different profile altogether. Yeah, it takes time. So that's where I said networking with those people, spending time with those people. If you go to meetup.com, there are multiple different forums available over there. You can join one of them where they would call you on a weekend. You can have a coffee or a drink, and then they would have these meetups organized. So you have to get into that zone first, where you sort of become comfortable. Don't get overwhelmed with the job description. I see it all the time. Heavily laden job description, heavily laid down job description with massive terminologies, and that just bogs you down. Yeah. So don't get overwhelmed. Just keep applying for the job description. Sometimes it's just about that particular day when the hiring manager is looking for somebody like you. So even though you may not have all of those skills that he needs, maybe you have only 5 out of 10, but then he feels that the other 5 is something that you can pick up on the job. So don't be afraid, just keep on applying. One key area should be strong. So at least I have listed 4 over there: Python, visualization, BA, domain, statistics. But at least you should be one of those core areas, right? So even if you're coming from a functionally strong business analyst background, that's your key strength. Don't put that, don't weigh it down. Yeah, you have to put that on the top of your resume, because that's what you have been doing for all of those years in your career, and there is no amount of experience, or there is nothing else that could actually weigh it down. So that's your key strength. Use that. But to complement that core functional skill is where you have to put in things like data visualization expert, can dabble with things in Python, can write good SQL queries, and is also aware of statistics. So position your profile where you put your key skill as something that your key skill is, the USP of your profile, but then you can also do the other things. That's how you have to package yourself. LinkedIn, Total Jobs, CV Library, Indeed, and there are a lot of other job portals, but I've listed 3 or 4 over here, which I see people using frequently. There are premium subscriptions available also if you want to pay and go for it. I don't pay for any of the subscriptions. For anything on LinkedIn, Total Jobs. Maybe if sometimes they give you a trial subscription, I go for it. At least till date, I never felt a need to go for a premium subscription on LinkedIn. Follow the post on LinkedIn from people in the same profession. Very important. Keep building your network. Keep commenting on what people are posting. Get into that mode of breaking the ice and start talking about these areas. Set the job alerts with keywords and keep improvising on them. So LinkedIn gives you an option to set job alerts, right? So put in some of the keywords: data analyst, data analysis, Python, data visualization expert, business analyst. Go through all the different kind of keywords. Put some of them that are relevant and that you are interested in, and then set the job alerts. And LinkedIn has this process of sending job alerts to you every day now, so you can actually see what kind of recommendations it's making, and you can also improvise on them. Yeah, so it gives you an option: are you happy with these recommendations or no? Use that. Behind the scenes, again, they are doing some heavy intensive data analysis, to be honest, so it all helps. Create a simple and concise ATS compliant resume. So in my experience, I feel that the Microsoft Word resume is the best one. All of these companies are using some sort of an application tracking system, which is where your applications will be residing. So make sure that you make a resume that is ATS compliant. So do some Googling on this. You will find out or see some YouTube videos, and you can find out more on what an ATS compliant resume is. Use interviews as learning opportunities even if you don't crack them. So there would be failures, there would be setbacks. They happen all the time, right? And it doesn't matter whether you're 10 years, 15 years, 20 years old in the industry, you would be rejected. And rejection doesn't mean that there is that there's a problem with you. It just simply means that maybe the hiring manager is looking for a different profile and your profile is different. Yeah, so it's a two-way process, right? It's when you approach a job, the company needs you, whereas you need a company as well, and the fitment evaluation should be from both the sides. So as an interviewer, you have to ask the candidate what are the things that he's looking for, and as the candidate, you should also ask the interviewer, whether there are things in this profile, in this job, that will satisfy you. And that's where I'm saying that use interviews as learning opportunities. Okay, so even if you don't crack them, see if you can at least get a feedback, and you can work on that feedback. And that's very important. Okay, so I think I'm going to end this video with this nice quote from Hal Varian, who's a chief economist in Google. I took this from the internet, but I think this is something that sort of resonates well with what we just discussed, right? So it says the ability to take the data, to be able to understand, to process it, and to extract value from it, and to visualize it, and to communicate is going to be hugely important skill in the next decades, right? Not just one decade, he says decades. So that's the kind of focus that is going to be there on the data. So don't miss the bus. If you are interested to build a career in data, working as a data analyst, then take that step today. Okay. If you need more help, if you need some guidance, I'm more than happy to help you. I'm also, maybe in the same path, maybe a few miles here and there, depending upon where you are in your journey. But then, we all learn from each other. So I'm more than happy to help you. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. My LinkedIn link will be there on my in the description, so you can take it from there. And I'll be more than happy to help any one of you. So with that, friends, I'll end this video. Do let me know if you found this video interesting or at least helpful. Do also let me know if there are particular areas that you want me to go down deeper and make a video on it. The domain series would still continue, so I'd still continue making videos on cards and payments. I'd still continue making videos on some of the interesting trends in financial domain, capital markets. So that is still going to continue, but this will be a dedicated series that is going to be focused on data. Okay, so with that, I'll end this video. I hope you all are taking good care of yourselves and keeping yourself safe from COVID. Hopefully things are looking good, and we will be soon able to go to our offices and meet our colleagues and friends and everybody else, and things will be back to normal. So on that note, I'm going to end this video and see you all until next time. Bye.